Oh, hi, everyone. This is Derek Hoyam, and I'm here with Kerrie Roberts. Kerrie is an incredible vocalist and singer-songwriter out of Florida, and she has millions of views on YouTube and sold a ton of records and has had multiple top 10 radio hits in the Christian and gospel area. And so welcome to the show, Kerrie.
Thank you, Derek, so much for having me. I'm super excited to just talk about the journey, what it means to be a creative,
Yeah,
what that
yes.
is.
Yeah, so let's start there because the reason why I was anxious to talk to you is because I feel like you really encompass the type of people I want to talk about their journey because you were kind of, I guess, young, like a talented young singer. You
Mhm.
landed on a major label, and then now you've gone independent, and then now you're a mom, and now you're also all into wellness and doing all kinds of fun stuff there and have a lot of great things to say. And so I kind of see you as like integrating a lot of wonderful things about having purpose and knowing why you do what you do. So tell us, like, just tell me from the beginning, kind of how your journey started and how you ended up on Sony Records.
I mean, it started very much like a lot of stories in the sense of growing up singing in the church. I'm a pastor's kid. That's a huge part of my story. Just my parents being in full-time ministry, my mom leading the choir, having those opportunities to be on stage and be in church leading since I was basically 5 years old, like standing on a milk crate because you couldn't see me above the partition for the choir, like back in the old days.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, starting there and just singing and music always being my passion. Um, it's like you can't say for whatever reason, is it the desire God put in your heart? Was it my own pride or I don't know, just being so driven of saying, a performer is what I'm going to be. I never doubted, never had a plan B, and I just went after it hard. And I started my first big like industry experience was a reality TV show on the WB.
Oh,
This,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. So this was like just prior to American Idol, and lucky for me because it was before the networks really knew exactly how to handle it. Because now, like before you even audition, you basically sign everything away. And at this point, we were just like signing a release to do a show. And then at the end, we got offered a contract or it was like a group and I got offered a contract. And because of the way things were, I was able to walk away from it. And there's lots of different reasons why I did.
Yeah.
But that is what led to my deal at Sony because MTV did a replay of that show that was originally on the WB, and my A&R guy at Providence saw that on MTV and saw like, there's this young girl that turned down this contract. She says she's a Christian and she prayed about it and she's not doing it. And he tracked me down, and that was my first contact with him. And I mean, it was a winding road of years for me to decide to finally partner with them, but it happened because of a reality show, which is crazy.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay.
Hmm.
And how old were you when you did that reality show?
19. Yeah, so I was in college.
Oh, okay.
There was a flyer on a bulletin board, and I was walking to class, and I was like, you know what? I should do that. I really can't dance, which that's part of the audition, but I'm just
Hmm.
gonna do it anyway. And it was so fun. I got to sing and meet and work with very briefly David Foster and
Wow.
just incredible choreographers that work with Michael Jackson, and it was, I mean, going to Hollywood, the whole thing. What an incredible experience! And then yeah, there's always so many little winding roads, but that was the beginning of my first like dipping my toe into real world industry.
Yeah, and that's actually a pretty good age too. That's not too young. I
Right.
see,
Yeah.
there was this young girl, Haley, who was just on The Voice. She's 15
Mm.
and she's kind of like a Ariana Grande in the making. And
Okay.
oh man, that's just too young to
Mm.
be handed such a huge platform. You kind of need a little more maturity under your belt, you know,
Yeah. Life
and
experience.
yeah. And Matthew West, I mean, he's talked about how he didn't even really start playing the guitar until he was into college. And then,
Hmm.
and so that's when he started, singing and writing and playing the guitar, was in college, and started playing in front of different groups at his university. And that started his career. So it's
Love
definitely a
that.
good age to kind of launch.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was the beginning.
And then, so somebody at Sony saw you. So that's Sony
Yeah.
Provident. Provident is
Hmm.
the Christian gospel division at Sony in Nashville. And actually, interestingly enough, I had an 8-year deal with them as well. They're wonderful people there at Provident.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
what was your journey like there at the label? Yeah, just tell me a little bit about that.
Right. So was by no means immediate. It was years later that I signed with them.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my first contact with them, I was like just in the mood to say no, which lasted for a while. I was like, I just
Hmm.
said no to this TV show. All these people are calling me. I'm like, there were people from Word reaching out. There, I was still sort of talking to David Foster and their management. Like it was overwhelming. And yeah, so I did that. I moved to New York. I toured with Engelbert Humperdinck for a year and got to travel the world with him.
Oh,
And
wow.
kept in touch with the people at Provident. And even when, they were in New York, like doing meeting with Sony there, I would be playing in clubs, and, they would come and they would hear me perform. And, it was kind of like just a relationship, even though it wasn't very frequent. But my time in New York was very important because I even did a showcase for Provident. They offered me a deal, and then I told them no, and
Oh.
then moved to New York, and then they still kept in touch. And while I was in New York, I was watching more and more of what the industry was. Watching really, really talented people. I think you have this perspective when you're out of it of like, oh, I'm so good, and then
Mm.
you get there and you see the level and you're like, guess what? Look around, everyone's so good. you know
Yeah.
get over whatever you think you have to offer. I'm sure it's very special, but there's a lot of very special out there. And I was just seeing people get like chewed up and spit out over and over and over, just people who are incredible. And I was having this conversation one night, and it was like, follow the passion, follow the people who really believe in you. And I'm like, you know what, I really have someone in my corner. Jason MacArthur is his
Hmm.
name.
Hmm.
And that's when I decided, I called him up. He was like, look, I don't even know if they'll give you a deal. Like, how many times can we say no to them? And then all of a sudden you're like, all right, I'm ready.
Yeah.
But it ended up happening. And so that was how that whole, very, very winding road to getting there. And I would say my biggest challenge then jumping in was having been an independent artist for so long,
Hmm.
having this dream for so long, and that made everything far too precious, to me, where I felt just like everything was worth fighting for. And
Hmm.
in retrospect, it's like, wait a minute, no, like, just because it's your first album, this isn't your only album. Like, you need to play the game. I wish I would have played the game more than I did.
Mm.
Um, just because, like I said, it was very precious to me, and my perspective, I was holding very tightly, and I
Mm.
try not to hold anything that tightly in my life anymore, which is a
Hmm.
challenge. But yeah.
Right. So tell me about that, about playing the game. So what do you mean by that?
Just not holding so tightly, in the
Mm.
sense of wanting it to be such a true artistic expression of myself, when really I should have, and people should, like, zoom out to the bigger picture of, this isn't just about you and your expression. This is about an audience that you are serving. More than that, this is about a team that you have signed up to be a part of. I
Mm.
didn't I didn't feel a part of the team, and I'm not saying that's on them or 100% on me. I'm sure that, a lot of it had to do with with me just because I'm such a private person. But I didn't feel a part of the team, and that wasn't the way I thought about it. But I wish someone could have looked at me and said, like, hey, view this as like a family project, and these people are your new family. Love them or hate them, and view it like that rather than, oh my goodness, I've wanted this since I was 5, and now it's finally happening, and
Yeah.
it just has to be everything that I've ever wanted. Yeah,
Oh,
that was
okay.
big.
I got you. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's actually a good perspective because I have had a mentor here in the Seattle area. His name is Steve Smith. He's been the recording engineer for Heart
Mm,
and Stevie Wonder actually too. And he told me once, he said, "Hey, Derek, music is a team sport, and most people
mm,
don't get that.
mm-hmm.
We all think it's all about ourselves,
Yeah,
and so yeah, no, that's a great perspective to have,
yeah,
especially with even if you're on an independent label. I think it is even probably more so important that you you add value to the label, and it's in your best interest to help the other artists and the staff succeed so that you can get your next album funded or your next music video funded, you
right.
know. And it's just not all about you and all the money being spent on you. It's if everybody's winning together, there's going to be more money there available for everybody to win together. So is
Yes,
that
and
is that is that kind of what you mean?
yeah, and a lot of it too is their level of care. It's like
Yeah.
if it's like, this is my vision, this is blah blah blah, then it's like, cool, this is Kerrie's vision, and then you fight back and forth for what you think is commercial or whatever. But it should have. I wish it would had been more like, what's our vision for this? I mean, there is a lot of pressure on you as an artist. You have to have your own vision. You
Yeah.
absolutely have to. But
Hmm.
if everybody has this little piece that they're invested in, guess what? They care more about the project, they care more about
Mm.
you. It's a bigger loss to them if it doesn't succeed.
Mm.
The more you're letting other people invest and be a part, then they care more. And I think that that's really, really important.
Mm.
It's important in
Yeah.
life.
So
Yeah.
tell me about that pressure. I mean, because I think sometimes when you're on a major label, and this is what I've heard from different artists, is once you're on a major label, there is all this like pent up anxiety over, oh, this next album has to do good or we all die, you know.
Mm.
And did you feel that?
Um, to me, it was the pressure was all about radio
Hmm.
for
Right.
me, and I know because that really drove that was about sales, and now it's like downloads and things were so just weird, but then it really drove like who booked you, and that was the pressure I felt. Radio. You have to
Mm.
give them something that will do good at radio.
Yeah.
And then, then you have to have your vision and what you want to say. What's so great about the Christian market is like, well, what I want to say is that, Jesus, Jesus saved us. We're here. We're pointing to him. We're looking at him. Like
Hmm.
it makes the mission very easy. And I love that. That's what our life mission should be about.
Hmm.
Um, but for me, actually, that was a struggle too. Like, I grew up in the ministry. I've never been ashamed, never wavered from my faith, but I always wanted to do pop music. And when I was doing independent stuff, it was all pop. So it's
Mm.
like now, not only am I a part of a machine and needing to listen to other people, now it's also like this questioning of, is this song Christian enough? Is this Christian enough? And that just like blew my mind. I'm like, I'm sorry. No, we can like give God glory through just everything we do by being. This is my act of worship. I'm alive. Like I have his breath in me. But that's not how the gatekeepers work. So that was a
Mm.
lot. That was like finding that perspective that was hard for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, and it's funny too because yeah, Christian radio has kind of been full of kind of contradictions because on one hand they'll say, "Hey, well, we do want more, faith-based lyrics," um, and but at the same time they'll embrace uh, a, an artist who maybe has had no faith, but then is doing some
Right. Yep.
venturing into the faith area.
Yes.
Such as
Yeah, that's hard.
Avril Lavigne, others.
Uh-huh.
Um, and that's why I think people were also questioning Kanye when he showed up at the doorstep of gospel
Mm,
music. They're like, is this dude real? Like, is this a
right.
real thing?
I love
You
that
know?
album. I don't care.
Yeah, right. I mean, and I had,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, well, what do you like about that, by the way? A little
There
side
are
journey
there's
here.
several there's like two songs that I really love. The one I can't think of it's the everything that has breath, praise the Lord is the
Mm,
first line of it. And I'm just like, yes, we play that all the time in the morning. And then the other song that we have everything we need, that's like
yeah.
literally our theme song in the house. Like my little 5-year-old and my 3-year-old or six, she's six now, like sing along and do the ooh ooh oohs. And we just say, we have everything we need. And we're just like, we're so thankful and we're so happy and there's truth in it. And I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, right, right. And so it has been funny to see, yeah, like we were saying, of just how I think Christian radio has changed quite a bit the last 5 years because of this kind of mix of the secular and the faith-based. You have artists from the Christian world crossing, we call it crossing over into the secular market, and then we have secular artists who are now crossing over into Christian gospel, or I call it crossing back. That's what I call it.
Mhm.
and and so it's thrown everything into chaos a bit in a good way. I think it's been in a good way. It's been kind of a fun shakeup, and I
Yeah.
think it helps us kind of, I think as artists, it helps us stay fresh, on both sides. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, so back to you. Okay, so back about the
Yeah.
story. So at the label, so you were there for how many albums did you do
I was
with
there.
Sony?
The first album was the one that for me, I like to say really just one. Like they released one
Hmm.
that we did like full radio on. And I mean, it was just incredible. Just all the artists I got to open for and be a part of. And the radio success that we had, like straight out of the gate, was just, I was so new at it. I didn't even realize how incredible it was as much as people tried to explain it to me. Um, but then that second album, they knew that certain networks were not going to play that second album, and they
Mm,
tried. I think what was frustrating to me is I wished that can't we think beyond radio? Because even that first
right.
album that did really well, we had no matter what that was huge, and then Outcast that did well on CHR, and then
Hmm.
like the follow-up ballads and everything. It's like we never got as good as that first no matter what, but the album was still great. Like things were rolling. It was like we were getting momentum.
Hmm.
So for me, my wish was, can we think creatively, um more than just like, if we're dead in the water with radio, is there something else we can do? And I know, and I don't know the details, but I'm sure there were other things like internally, because at the time that I was dropped, I wasn't the only one. It was kind of like, all right, they had to, make some cuts. So that second album that they had put so much money into and time, and I mean, it was just ready. It was just kind of like, all right, it's out and you're dropped and we're doing nothing. It was just kind of
Mm,
like, there it is.
gotcha.
So that was my experience with that. So even with that, I still had my booking agent, my management, and toured that album, and had some really great experiences of just learning, like booking myself through Facebook. And that's when I knew, like, oh, hey, I'm still going to do this, not quitting. Um,
Yeah, right.
and just kept going, loving my band, like really getting the right players around me, and yeah, just kept going, and as much just staying on the road as much as I could. That's like what keeps you alive.
Hmm. Yeah, well, and this is kind of a good topic to talk about, like kind of the transition from radio into more the streaming area, YouTube and social media era, because I think both your career and my career, kind of more as an executive, like we live those transitions. We live the before and after. And I was just talking to somebody else today where I was telling them, like, prior to Spotify coming ashore in the U.S. in fall of 2013, like nothing had really changed with the way music had been marketed for really the last 100 years since radio
Hmm.
was invented,
Hmm.
and so it was all dependent on radio and big masses of people listening to radio stations. And I think probably what you saw in that downsizing was the arrival of Spotify, the rise of streaming, and
Right.
Sony was probably trying to figure out that new mix and how do we market music now. And
Yeah.
everybody's still trying to figure it out, I think, in some sense.
Hmm.
And now it's crazy that TikTok is one of the
Oh
main
my
ways
goodness.
we
Oh,
market music now.
it makes me
Uh,
so tired to think about. I cannot think about TikTok.
right, right.
Oh, I'm so bad.
Yeah, and
Oh,
actually, just a little definition because you had mentioned CHR format radio, which
oh
stands for
right.
contemporary hit radio, which is kind of like a pop music mix. And then there's adult contemporary, which is kind of easy listening, and that's kind of the dominant format in Christian radio. So
Hmm.
the big money, right, has always been uh, adult contemporary is the main Billboard chart that all the artists and the labels want to be on in the Christian space, because that's where the most radio stations have been, and with the biggest audiences. So
Right.
your first single, no matter what, did have traction there. I
Yeah.
think you were in like top three, or you had like number three or something on the
I don't,
AC
yeah,
chart.
I know it was at least top five. Maybe it
Yeah,
was three, something like that.
yeah.
And I
So that
will
was.
say, oh gosh, it's like, you know how talks about Karen now, like poor Karen, anyone named Karen. For
Yeah,
me, whenever I was at the label, it was Becky.
yeah.
But Becky wasn't like the bad guy. Becky was the girl you had to please.
Right.
And so for me, like I hated Becky. I'm like, I don't care about Becky. If she doesn't want to be my friend, I don't care. And maybe that was bad. They were like, all
Right.
right, well, we live for Becky, so you have to
Yeah.
go.
Well, yeah. Well, let's talk about how you think about marketing your music now. I mean, because like I said, you're a mom and you're into wellness. And so, and you're independent now, as you were saying. So, like, how has this changed how you think about existing in the music marketplace now?
Well, I know that I need help and I know that I need to get better at thinking about how to exist, because part of me is like really a nightmare of an artist for this era. Because I'm very private. I don't like being online. It's like everything that will give you success as far as like TikTok and posting and making reels and doing that. Like it takes so much time and attention. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm gonna go like nature journal with my daughter, and we're gonna draw
Hmm.
pictures of zebra butterfly caterpillars that we just discovered. And we're gonna do that for like 2 hours, and then we're gonna make herbal tea from the lemongrass that's growing in our yard. Like we're just
Yeah.
I want my hands and my feet in the dirt, like near the earth. I believe that's like where God created us to be. That is where I find peace. That is where I grow. That's where I'm
Yeah.
inspired. And that's when music comes to me. So it's like I have to have those things. Um, so I'm still very much trying to figure out my balance and how to do it and keep my sanity, because I truly know the only way for me, barring some just like weird astronomical event, is it is going to be through social media, building your mailing list, posting on YouTube. And I will say the one thing that I've been not as good at as others, but I am still consistently creating and releasing something every
Yeah.
couple months, and that gives me something to say. I still have a lot to say. I have, stories to tell and experiences to speak to. And um, I think, I mean, the biggest difference, and I know like being a mom has a lot to do with it, because that just really snaps you into like, whoa, priorities here.
Yeah. Right.
Snape puts you in your place for sure. But I've done a lot of thinking and had time to do it, especially like with COVID, because a lot of my time is spent leading worship locally, and I stay busy. So it's like your head is clouded. And what was so great about the shutdown, as horrible as it was for the economy and so many people, the blessing it was to me is just giving me space to think of like, what is the purpose of music? What is the purpose of my music? What is the purpose of my performance. Like I know God has given me a voice, He's given me songs. Could it quite be like, is He just as glorified for me to sit in my garden among the honeybees and like sing to Him? um, you think how we have such a limited perspective of what music is in our lifetime. Like it's performance, it's buying records, oh, it's CDs, it's downloads, it's whatever. But for the longest time, like hundreds of years, thousands of years maybe, like music was communal. And I'm
Mm,
sure, yes, you have those performers, you have your Davids, you have your worshipers that go out in front of the army, but music is communal, and it's not really, I don't think that it was meant to be just this like spotlight thing. It's
right.
meant to be sharing, it's meant to be pointing us to truth, to stories, to scripture, to meditation, so much more than a number one on the radio. So my perspective of success has changed totally, and that's given me complete peace. The struggle and the feeling of failure has been suffocating at times. I'm
Mm,
just like, oh, I can feel it in my bones. Like it's like a part of my DNA. Like I have failed. It's like the
mm.
bad breakup you can't get over, right? Like, but I was
Yeah.
trying so hard and you didn't want me. Right? What
Yeah.
can I do?
Yeah.
But then just coming to that place of that eternal perspective and who we are in God's creation and in the timeline of eternity. What is a radio single? I'm not saying it's bad. Like I'm, rejoice in that, and I'm happy for other people that have it. But for me, all I can do is live with an open heart and open hands, and put in the work. And whatever God wants to bring me, He will. And it's been incredible what He has brought into my life as far as all of the worship leading I get to do locally. I get to come home to my family and be with my girls, and nurture them, be with my husband and my family that's
Hmm.
local.
Hmm.
Um, and then it's crazy too, the crazy fly dates that just pop out of the blue. Of even this morning, I woke up and opened my email and I was like, what? This is crazy. This is out of, oh, sure. Yes, I would love to go.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah.
Yeah. So, it's good. I feel like those are just like little hugs from God being like, look, I'm still tending to that part of your heart for you.
Hmm.
But at
Mm,
the same time, having just that better, I think, healthier and more mature spiritual perspective of what is the nature and purpose of this music and this performance. If it truly is to glorify God and be His hands and feet, then all I can do is surrender to Him and accept those platforms, stages, people, moments that He provides for me, and simply let it go. Like I have let go of the striving, of the
mhm,
like suffocating hamster wheel that Nashville was to me. I'm not
mhm,
putting that on Nashville. I'm saying what it was to me and what I made of it and what I felt there.
mhm.
So for me, that's been freedom and joy.
Yeah, and I I think what's really neat about this social media age, and even if you choose not to be on it for a while at a time, like there's a ton of other moms who want to be with their daughters in the garden and drawing pictures during the day, and you can be a voice for them, you know.
Hmm.
And I heard this term recently. I thought it was pretty funny. They said the riches is in the niches,
Yes, I
right?
love that.
And it's about you finding those people who resonate with those values that you hold dear, and you can do things together, right? You can share stories. You can, like you said, lead worship at their church or whatever, and that's that is what brings purpose and meaning, right? Was
Hmm.
when we share, like you said, community, building community
Yeah.
around music and life and faith and family. Like that's incredible.
Oh, yeah, I think that's a challenge for me, for my perspective of, it's like I have my Facebook page and I'm like, do I really want to waste people's time by posting like Oh my goodness, you guys, I just fermented this cashew cheese. It is so good. Like they're here because they like my music. They're gonna be like,
Yeah.
"What are you jacking about?" But I
Yeah.
guess they could just scroll on by if they want, and I could just do better at just sharing life and what it is, and it's so much more than music. So
Right.
there's lots in
Well,
between.
yeah, well, I mean, honestly, I mean, I look at during COVID, all these different artists, who have started cooking shows. Like
Hmm.
my favorite kind of music genre is R&B, and I love an artist named Joss Stone.
I love her. Yes.
Yeah, and she is just the funniest thing. She just, I don't even think she cooked very much when she started at the beginning of COVID. And she's always traveling, like she's like all over the place, like Greece and Spain and Latvia and like South
Yeah.
America. Like that's kind of her thing, is doing R&B music with all these these different nationalities and different musicians in different countries. And it all came to a screeching halt for her,
Hmm.
and she just flipped on her camera, on her phone in her kitchen, and started burning muffins and stuff like that. It was fun, and it was, she was just really cute. And then, was it Selena Gomez, I think, started a cooking show too, where she does
Oh,
stuff
she
with
is so
chefs.
cute.
Yeah. And so that's been a hit because she's been raising money for charity through that. So I think people do want to see that stuff,
All
I think
right,
they
well,
do
maybe I'll
want to
try.
see.
Maybe I'll accept the challenge.
Yeah. we want to hear about good cheeses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my whole kid, it's like this house is one big experiment. It's so great. So much randomness. Yes.
Well, yeah, no, I think that's great, Kerrie. So that is definitely a microcosm about how we can kind of reach audiences today, is just being real. And I think that's kind of what
Mm.
social media has, I think, brought forward. And even seeing what's happened with Adele recently, of the past,
Oh,
I mean, she hasn't had an album in 4 years,
right. Yeah.
and her fans are still there,
Yeah, for sure.
right?
Hmm.
And so I don't think there's any particular formula now.
Yeah. It is interesting because, I don't post that often, but then when I do post, I'm like, huh, like the engagement is still there. Um, and then there's the people too that like always comment, and some of them I have met and I remember because they've like come to several shows, but
Hmm.
some I've never met, but it's like I just feel like I know them because they're always, yeah, I see their little profile picture, and they always comment back and have something to say, and they're really supportive, and that's incredible. I'm really thankful for that.
So speaking of, where can we find
Yes.
you on social media?
Yes, for all of the really interesting herbal and gardening tips coming up. Um, it's on Facebook, it's Kerrie Roberts Music,
With
and
a K.
on with
With
a
a
K,
K.
Kerrie.
Yeah.
Website kerrieroberts.com, and Instagram is just Kerrie Roberts. Yeah. And I try to respond to things, as far as, I guess, if you wanted to send me a message, or like people like to write letters about stories of songs, it's always best to do that through the contact at the website, because it gets lost in DMs and all that stuff that gets
Mm,
like
okay. So
buried in the piles.
kerrieroberts.com, and send you a
Yeah.
message there. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And for booking and all that, if you have, my favorite thing is just like to come in on a Sunday morning and help lead worship and share songs and stories and be a part of the service. And um, I love doing that. So
Great. Well, thanks, Kerrie, for being on Make a Fun Island, the business of creativity. I appreciate you so much, and I look forward to all the great music that you're releasing currently, and will be releasing, and more music videos. You have some really fun
y-
lyric videos you've been doing here recently too. So everybody check those out on Kerrie Roberts' YouTube channel as
yes,
well.
I'm hoping for new music probably out in April at the latest. And I think we'll have a
Mhm.
video. And just thank you for everything you do. Thank you for making a fun island.
Well, you're welcome. Well, let's make a big one for everybody. And all right, thanks everyone. We'll see you next time.